I've been using the Ace Pro for a few months now, and I want to share my thoughts about this camera. And by the way, Insta360 sent me this camera to review a few months ago, but it's not a sponsored video. I've never done a sponsored video, and Insta360 had no control or influence over my video. I always share my honest opinions whether I bought the product, borrowed the product, or got it for free. And that's why most companies won't send me their stuff. I just wanted you to know that. It's a bit larger than any of my other action cameras, but it seems well put together. I've used it for bike rides and kayaking trips, and I've gotten it wet, muddy, dropped it a few times, and it hasn't sustained any injuries yet. The flip-up display is something I like a lot. It doesn't seem flimsy or fragile in any way, and it locks into place when down. I don't mind the Leica lens, but I've heard people say it's just a marketing gimmick, and I can't really disagree with that. It's a perfectly good lens. I just don't see any visual benefits over an unbranded in-house lens when I compare the footage to other cameras. The lens protector seems like it was designed to be removable originally, but then they glued it in place. My guess is that it was a last-minute decision they made to prevent moisture getting in and fogging up the glass. It does take photos, and I find them to be very good for an action camera, but I'm gonna get straight to the video quality. This is where the headline feature comes in. It's the world's first 8K action camera, and I don't think it's fair to say it's just a gimmick. It does record in 8K resolution, and in some side-by-side comparisons I did, there's a very obvious benefit in clarity. But I just found myself never using that resolution. It's limited to 24 frames per second. It's a bit harder for my PC to edit the footage, and by the time it's rendered out in 4K and uploaded to YouTube, no one can tell the difference between that and ordinary 4K, not on a camera like this. 8K on a cinema camera versus 4K? Yeah, there's a big difference there. But on a little action camera with a small sensor and a lot of software processing happening, shooting in 8K just isn't useful for me. I really admire them for pushing the boundaries though of action camera technology, but I wish they would focus more on just improving the video quality at 4K rather than trying to be the first to reach the next highest resolution. Having said that, one thing that makes the 8K sensor quite useful is being able to record in 4K and zoom in 200% while still keeping the same 4K resolution. It's good in theory, and in practice I found it to be quite good. A fair bit better than zooming in on 4K footage in post, but I think there's still a reduction in quality once zoomed in. It doesn't really give you the same result as zooming in with a lens, but still much better than just cropping in afterwards. With regard to the video quality, in my opinion, aside from maybe two concerns, it's great looking footage. It has good dynamic range, plenty of detail, vibrant colours. It does what I need an action camera to do. I like to kayak early in the mornings in some really harsh light, and it handles it fantastically. The old days where everything would just turn dark when pointing into the sun like this are well and truly over. Some people may not realise how big a challenge that was for small camera manufacturers to solve, but here we are. However, one issue I found is in certain lighting conditions, the white balance can become a bit of a monster and get a bit out of control. It'll sometimes change quite obviously during a shot. This seems like something they could fix with an update by allowing us to toggle a switch that locks the white balance as soon as recording begins. I don't know why more cameras don't have that feature. In general, colours lean towards the warm side, which I like when shooting everything apart from people, but I don't like how it affects skin tones. I can promise you my skin is nowhere near as red as it looks in this clip, but this is an extreme example. Most of the time, it's nowhere near as bad as this, but it does have a tendency to push skin tones into the red more than my other action cameras, and sometimes it makes me look like I have some kind of inflammatory skin condition. Maybe it's just a secret mode hidden in the firmware for a future update, psoriasis detection mode. Either way, I need to pull the reds down a bit in post. I've heard people say the Ace Pro has too much sharpening. I have mixed feelings on this. I agree by default it's a bit over sharpened, so I set the sharpness to the lowest, and at that setting I don't think it looks bad, it looks good to me, but the background is out of focus. If I set the sharpness higher, the background looks better, but now the foreground is too sharp and processed looking. So I've settled on medium sharpness, and I think that's the best of the four settings for me. There's almost no point keeping a stabilization segment in my reviews at this point, because the three best action camera makers all give us super solid footage. Insta360 has always done excellent stabilization, and the Ace Pro continues that trend. It's getting harder to tell the difference between this and a gimbal. There's a couple of ways to get slow motion on this. In normal video mode, it can do up to 4K 120, and then you slow it down in post. Or you can select slow motion mode and have 4K 120 baked into the footage. You can still turn stabilization on when shooting at 4K 120, but it doesn't work very well. 4K 120 is standard on action cameras now, and I'm glad to see it on this. One area the Ace Pro really excels in is low light. There's a mode specifically made for low light which keeps the shutter speed high to reduce the typical smearing that digital stabilization creates, and it works really well. I don't think any of the other action cameras right now can beat the Ace Pro for low light. The built-in audio is okay for close-up vlogging. This is an audio test of the Ace Pro out on this beautiful lake. There's birds tweeting, there's no wind, the water is like glass. What a beautiful morning. But you'll get much better audio using an external mic. There's an adapter that will let you connect a 3.5mm lav mic. You can also use AirPods as a wireless mic, but for me and my AirPods Pro 2, the sound was terrible. The good news is that a firmware update made the Ace Pro compatible with the DJI Mic 2, and now we can get really good audio even from hundreds of meters away. So yeah, if you want good audio, the Ace Pro has all the options you need. For battery life and overheating, I did some tests at various resolutions and frame rates. The reason I stopped buying GoPros was I just had a lot of problems with them freezing on me. In all these months, the Ace Pro hasn't frozen once, so it seems reliable. I wish the camera was a bit smaller. It's quite a hefty thing, especially with the tripod adapter attached, which I keep on there all the time. It's not great to carry in a jeans pocket. When it's recording, there's no way to manually turn off the display to save battery. Normally, I expect to short press the power button to turn the display off, but instead that adds a marker to the footage, which is something I don't need. Plus, there's already an on-screen mark button, so why not let the power button turn the display off or give us an option for that? The one thing that bothers me most is that the screen goes completely black when I'm wearing polarized sunglasses. This is the first camera I've ever had that does this. I guess the polarizing filter on the display makes the image easier to see in bright sun, and it is really easy to see in the sun, so that's great. But do you know what else happens in bright sun? People wear sunglasses, and most sunglasses these days are polarized, so the screen goes completely black. It's kind of a funny design decision. I mean, what were they thinking? I love that I can use the DJI Mic 2 with the Ace Pro, but I wish I could just power them both on and they'd connect automatically, just the way earbuds connect to phones automatically, and the Mic 2 connects to the Pocket 3 automatically. Instead, every time I power on the Ace Pro, I need to go into the menu and connect the mic manually. Over these past few months, I've been in the background testing the Ace Pro, quietly observing the rollout of this camera and all the hype and drama and shenanigans that came with it. It might be the most controversial action camera in history, but if I ignore all the drama and the marketing fluff like the Leica branding and consider just the hardware itself, it's a good action camera, and I think some of the criticism is overblown. I do think the price is too high though. It's 130 Canadian dollars more than the Action 4, and in my opinion, that's a mistake. I know it has the 8K, but in real-world use, I just don't see much benefit from shooting at 8K 24, though I do use the zoom feature quite a bit. I'm glad I worked on this review slowly over a few months and took my time to get to know the Ace Pro, rather than getting it at launch and rushing out a review, because in that time, some of the things people complained about have been fixed now. For example, upgraded wireless mic compatibility, less display lag when recording, and a few other fixes and additions. The video quality might not be the absolute best in the business, but it's very good. The flip-up display is unique to Insta360 and gives you a much larger selfie screen than typical. The white balance, the skin tones, these could do with some work. It leans too much into the red sometimes and makes people look sunburned. The noise reduction might be slightly too aggressive, and the software sharpening can look a bit overdone sometimes. But some of these things are just nitpicking. When I take it on my bike rides and film my dog's adventures and go kayaking, it's reliable, tough, and waterproof. The menu is very snappy. It has great options for audio, and it gets me nice looking, super stable shots without any hassle. And at the end of the day, that's all I'm looking for in an action camera. If you found this useful or interesting, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.